Well, oil and gas consultant Olabode Sowunmi joins me now in the studio. Thank you so much for being on the news tonight on this holiday.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Great. I mean, the Naira for crude oil deal barely ended yesterday, which was 31st of March. And already, as you saw, Godfrey, our correspondent who went to town, was already reporting hiking prices. The deal had barely ended, was hours to it ending, and we're seeing a surge in prices. What does this tell us?
I think it's good to look at the causative factors rather than the circumstantial evidence, because even from what was reported from MEMAN, the major energy providers, is that they're saying that the landing cost for the fuel that they bring in has increased because there's a transition from the fuel that is used during the winter to the one that is used during the summer, but the one used during the summer having a higher cost. So normally that means the final cost will be a bit more than previous. And the bigger challenge really is the Naira to dollar ratio, because even if there's a change by 20 cents, by 50 cents, it's the difference in Naira begins to be huge. The other part is that you can't really attribute it to the Dangote refinery's insistence, because they have not yet started selling at that new product. But of course, there's the tendency that the market is preparing and reacting to that news.
So price speculators?
That could also be a factor.
Okay, but you know, it does mean, from what you've said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we are seeing a lot of imported products and not so much the locally refined one, which the president came up with this brilliant idea as a stopgap to stabilize prices, Naira to crude, with Dangote and NPCL.
Yes.
Is that what's playing out? More imported fuel?
I think everybody, so what the market and what the government has tried to enable the market to do is to ensure a free market enterprise. So which basically means that everybody will sell to as many people as possible within the innovation and competitiveness that they can. I don't think anybody really is affecting anyone. So Dangote has his customers, he has his outlets. The major marketers have their customers, they have their outlets. Each person is pushing through their own outlet. So it's not, they are more or less coterminous. In other words, they're not really affecting each other.
But again, the idea was to stabilize price. And the president says he understands the issues on ground. And this was to help stabilize the price because, again, Forex on the one hand was an issue. But then Dangote says is able to provide for the country's needs at any given point in time. So it does make sense that we have a Dangote. Perhaps the question in all of this is the ability for the NNPCL to provide crude. Is that the bottom line? Is that a problem in all of this? We're unable to meet that crude supply for local refinery.
Okay, so you recall that the deal in terms of the Naira for crude is not even made public. So we don't even know the terms of the deal in itself. I'm not sure there's any legislation or law that says it should be made public, but because of the nature and the way it's affecting us, it would have been good if it was made public so that we can dissect it. In terms of the reason for the deal in the first place, I believe it was to help mitigate the demand and the pressure on the dollar, which invariably is now affecting the cost to the average Nigerian. So if you look at everything, I mean, there are multiple factors that could be involved. There are reasons that could necessitate for the contract not being renewed. In the first place, it's not going to be available forever. It's not sustainable because it's a subsidy of sorts. So it has to stop at some time. Whether this is the right time to stop is a different question entirely. And some of all those things we are not able to see until we see the actual terms that the agreement, the contract that made those things available. Then we can make informed decisions. Until then, we'll just be looking at the press releases that each party is releasing and the body language and whatever it is they say and be analyzing it. But there's a lot more detail that needs to come in. But having said that, at the end of the day, what the total purpose of governance and the market is for the welfare of the people, which also means the welfare within a certain box of a proper free market. Balancing what should be free market and the welfare of the people is an arduous task, but it's a task of governance, it's a task of market players, it's a task of stakeholders. And I believe and I hope I hope actually that at the end of the day, whatever comes out from the interplay of all the forces that come in will be to the ultimate benefit of Nigerians.
But what's your assessment so far of this initial 6 months? Would you say it was successful, or would you say it was a failure? And if you were to speak to government, I know you said this is a subsidy of some sort and it has to end at some point, but what would be your advice to government? Should we extend, should we reform it, and should we stop it immediately?
It's going to be difficult, like I said, to say, because
but from the assessment of
what I'm saying that is that when the contract was made available, I mean, when the contract was done, it was not made available. So there are terms in those contracts. There are goals that those contracts are supposed to achieve. Some of those goals we don't know. Because is the crude just available because we like Dangote? And I mean, the crude to Naira, is it just available because we like Dangote? That can be it. There has to be some more economic fundamentals in play. There has to be certain issues that are industry related. Those issues that are industry related, those things that are economic fundamentals, they're missing. And until we know those goals, it will be difficult to make informed contributions. With respect to whether Dangote was happy, if that's a measure for success, I'm sure he was happy, so you can say he was successful on that front. If it was those prices that necessitated or encouraged or made it possible for him to reduce prices, then it was a success. But we do not know whether that was the factor that made him to reduce prices during those times. So until we are able to get more details, we cannot make analysis in a vacuum.
Yeah, but there was the idea, the notion that Nigerians are beginning to see a competitive market. But now it does look like their hopes are dashed. And given the reasons of the winter or summer, period, and the relative prices changed, and then this whole Naira for crude, it looks like a lot is going on in the oil and gas industry that Nigerians just wake up, see different prices, and they're left with no choice. The regulators, would you say they are doing enough? How would you assess the industry really at this point?
So really, what is happening is not strange and is not to be unexpected.
Is it really market forces?
It's market forces, because but I mean, if the landing price is changing, that's a market force. It's what the market is saying. If
not exploitation of Nigerians here.
So exploitation will happen when people deliberately have a price and they speculate, they tinker with, either they hoard or they increase the prices beyond.
Arbitrarily?
Yes, that is where you talk about exploitation. But when people are doing it, I mean, and this is why things need to be transparent, because Nigerians too are grasping with it. Even though, and that's why I call for the transparency of that deal between NNPCL and Dangote. It is from there that you really know whether there's any form of exploitation, whether somebody is getting an unfair advantage, all those things in the open, and people can know what is happening. Exploitation, given the fact that the pricing is transparent, given the fact that the pricing can be verified, does not really come into the play. It's just the fact that right now we are facing the brutal reality of market forces from an industry that has been protected over the decades.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Olabode Sowunmi, oil and gas consultant, for your insight on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you.